We have 5 businesses and we have 500 kids working for us. We have 50 or 60,000 customers a month. We had Disney coming to us, wanting us to open. We allowed people to buy franchises that we should never have allowed. So out of 28, we had 5 or 6 not make it. They sued us for fraud. 3 years in court, hundreds of lawsuits. We filed bankruptcy, my mom and dad did, lost their home, cars, everything. My wife and I selling our house, everything was gone. So this guy looked so different, and he said, I went on a religious pilgrimage. I went to this place over in this little tiny village where these children are allegedly claiming that they see people from heaven. And he goes, I went over there. And he said, Dave, it's real. I knew I had to go. I saw miracles. I witnessed things. Everything changed.
What was the biggest miracle you saw?
If I can impart something here today, it would be people look at our success, and we've done really well. We're very blessed.
Very well.
We have 5 businesses, and we have 500 kids working for us, and we have 50 or 60,000 customers a month in each ice cream parlor, that we're touching their lives. So people look at the success, but I want to start and talk about the adversity that we went through, because I think a lot of times people, when they have adversity in their lives, they think, why is this happening to me? Or some people see how difficult it is to run a business. They say, I'll never do that. I'm going to keep my security and my job and my hourly wage, so they don't ever step out. Or people lose hope. And so if I can impart something here today, it would be to inspire people to have hope and courage to do things in their life.
Oh, goosebumps. Let's do it.
If I might start, we're from the Midwest, and we grew up, and we're, that work ethic, farming. Relatives had pig farms and corn farms, and they worked in industry. And it's a work ethic that I think my family had. I remember a story about my grandpa. He drove a fuel truck. And back then, they would bring the fuel out and they would pump it into 5-gallon buckets and dump it in the tank for the farmers. So he drove this fuel truck. And I'll never forget the story that my dad was helping him. And he lost count of how many buckets he'd given the farmer. He was supposed to give him 5 buckets of 5 gallons each. And my grandpa said, have you given him the 5 buckets? And my dad said, I think so.
I think so.
He said, you better give him another one. We will never cheat anybody. And that's when they were poor. And so I remember my grandpa doing that, my dad telling that story. So it's just kind of how we were raised as a family.
Integrity.
Hopefully.
That's beautiful.
Hopefully. So anyway, my grandpa came out here and he started his own business, insurance. My dad started his own business, after working for some corporations for a while. And it was an wholesale appliances. And I got out of college and I started my own business. So we were all kind of that entrepreneurial, not major, big time, but we all worked for ourselves and started our own business. And it's interesting, my grandfather retired. My dad had a partnership dispute, so he was out of business. There were some problems there, and I sold my business when I was 24, 25, something like that. So we had 3 generations that had nowhere to go, no work, no job.
Wow.
And we said, what do we do now? And my dad says, well, I'd like to start looking for a business. And I remember thinking, gosh, we could do a lot of things, right? And he goes, but I don't want to do a normal business. I don't want to do something that sells widgets or just a product. I want to do something that makes the world a better place. I want to do something that contributes towards the betterment of the community, and it helps people. My dad always wasn't like that. There was
like the leave the world a better place mindset? Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Thanks for clarifying that. We were hard workers, and we came from a poor family. I was one of 10 kids. I was the oldest of 10 kids. I remember working my whole life to buy my own clothes and having paper routes and lawn jobs, and my parents couldn't afford stuff. We bought all our stuff at the Goodwill. I remember getting all my clothes at the Goodwill as a kid. and being somewhat embarrassed to go to school and where other kids had more. And so that created in me a mindset. I never wanted to be poor. It was embarrassing. It was sort of humiliating. And so I had this mindset I was going to be successful. And that was my motivation. That was my priority in my whole life. Whatever I did was, I'm going to make it.
It gives you that sixth gear. You can see it in people when they grow up poor. There's a different fire.
Yeah. So my dad had that to some degree. I did. And probably my grandfather, and so that's why we were entrepreneurs. But at a certain point, my dad was working for Safeway Corporation. And there was a guy that was the head of all the Western United States. And Safeway was expanding. They were opening stores all over the West, growing like crazy. And this guy was in charge of Safeway in the Western United States. And my dad was a young guy, hardworking, and this guy hired my dad. And my dad grew to really admire him. He was honest and hardworking, and he was demanding, but he was just, and he loved people. He developed people. He was firm with them, right? But the people knew that he loved him. And my dad grew to love this guy. He would come home, and I remember as a kid, and he would say, man, this guy, I wish I could be like him. He was the greatest. Well, one day, this guy pulls my dad aside, and he said, I want to challenge you. And we may come away from this conversation and we may not be friends again. But I'm going to challenge you. I'm a man of faith. And you need to become a man of faith. My dad thought, well, I am. I believe, And he said, no. He said, I want to give you some things to read. And this guy was a Catholic.
Okay.
And he gave my dad a couple of books on Catholic saints. And the guy said, I want to challenge you. And he gave him these books. And he said to my dad, I'll read whatever you give me, and then we're going to sit down. And if you can convince me that your way of life is right, I'll follow you. But he said, if I convince you, you have to follow me. He said, that is the fundamental thing in my life. That's my motivation. That's my purpose. And if you like working for me, the reason is because of that, right? So that's where everything that I have comes from, this man. So my dad read these books, and it blew him away.
Really?
He'd never read anything like that, right? These amazing people who gave everything in their life for others. So my dad read them, and one day he came home, and I remember he said to me and my mom, we're going to become Catholic. And I said, man, I don't want to do that. I knew some Catholics down the street, and they were the naughtiest kids I knew, And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I threw a fit. In fact, I remember even crying. I don't want to do it. I don't want to do that. Why? And all our relatives wondered what the heck is going on, because they were all from the Midwest, a different background.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember what books?
I do. There were two. One was a book written by St. Augustine around the year 400. And he's considered one of the greatest minds, most brilliant people who've ever lived. He probably wrote more than any other person ever about life and faith and things. And he was a playboy originally. Okay. He had this conversion, and so he writes about it. And so the book that this guy gave my dad was his conversion story that he wrote, kind of his autobiography. And it was called The Confessions of St. Augustine. Confessions of St. Augustine.
Okay.
All right. And it was his personal story. So it was really compelling. And the other one was a book written by a gal who died when she was 24 years old. And she was in a convent, a Carmelite sister, a nun. She probably knew 20 people in her whole life. Never ventured out, nothing. And she had one of the greatest impacts in the world because of her writings and what she did. And she wrote about herself called The Story of a Soul. And her name was Saint Therese of Lisieux. And he'd never read anything that profound, that deep, that challenging. And he had never thought about living your life for others, right? You live your life for your family and yourself. Mm-hmm. But to live your life and make your life a gift, that's just a thought that never entered his mind. So anyway, he came home and told us, and we ended up becoming Catholic, and I hated it. They put me in Catholic schools, I hated it.
Oh, really?
Oh, I just didn't like it. You know, when you're growing up a different way. And
yeah.
So we were raised Catholic. My parents had 5 kids, and then they went on to be open to life, right? Catholic says you need to be open to life. They had 5 more, so we ended up having 10 kids.
Holy.
And we were poor, but we were really happy. Even though it was embarrassing being poor, I never brought anybody to my home. None of my friends. I wouldn't bring them to my house because I was a little bit ashamed. But we were still happy, you know. It was a wonderful, wonderful gift with a big family like that.
Even before Catholicism, you were a big, happy family?
Well, we had 5 then.
Okay.
But you know what? Our focus, you know how you kind of follow the lead of your parents,
Sure.
really. They set the tone. And the tone was not the same. My dad became a man who became very generous and, you know, giving and joyful and loved people. He started it changed his life. And so as a kid, you witness this, right?
Yeah.
You see it. Even though I didn't want to be Catholic, I could see the difference in my dad. And so when the time came for us to start this business, he said, I want a business that is going to do something for the world, make it better, bring joy, whatever it is. And so we began looking. We spent a year looking everywhere. And my sister called one day, Shelley, and she's number 4.
Okay.
And I have 8 sisters and 1 brother.
Wow.
So this sister, she's in nursing school. She's real smart. And she's down in Oakland, Samuel Merritt School of Nursing. And she calls home and she says, you guys got to come see this ice cream parlor that's down here in Oakland. She's really amazing. So we went down to visit her. And then on a Saturday afternoon, we went over to this ice cream parlor, and there was a line out the door down the street. And the name of the business was Fenton's. And it was a family that had been in the dairy business for 80 years. We go to this ice cream parlor, lines out the door, Saturday afternoon. We get in the line, we go in, and we look around, and there are these sundaes being carried out by waitresses, and they're enormous. They're gigantic. In fact, they were laughable. Oh, my gosh.
Just ridiculous.
Oh, my gosh. Who can eat? Oh, my gosh. Look at that one. Look at that one. And people are happy, and the place is packed. They probably had 125 seats. Line, every seat taken, you know, and it was amazing. And what was even more amazing is the Fenton family had sold their business. And they sold it to a big dairy conglomerate. And the dairy conglomerate had to take this ice cream parlor. They didn't want it. They wanted the dairy. And so what they did was they put all their old retired union employees, or the employees that were going to retire, they'd stick them in this ice cream parlor. But it was a bunch of old ladies who were miserable.
No.
Really, they were grumpy. You know, they'd come up to the table. Are you ready? No, you're not ready yet. I'll be back. Hurry up. I got other tables to wait on. You know, you just go, oh my gosh. And my dad started laughing, and he said, can you imagine if we treat people the right way, how successful we could be? This is what I want to do. This would bless the community. Everybody would be welcome. Every kind of person, you know. He said, this is what I want to do. And so, you know, I'm in my early 20s, and I said, okay, let's do it. And so we threw our money together, and we spent a year and a half research, working and sampling and testing and creating flavors. And this Fenton's conglomerate, it wasn't Fenton's, it was Foremost Dairy at the time. They've now sold. But Foremost Dairy, and they were big all over the Western United States. And we went down there and we said, can we pay you to learn something about how to run an ice cream parlor? Because we don't know how to run an ice cream parlor.
Sure.
My dad had worked in a restaurant in Iowa. His family had one, and he loved the gathering place where people would come, and he just thought that was so amazing. But we didn't know anything about ice cream, even though we made homemade ice cream, the crank kind. You know. the guy from Foremost Dairy, he said, I'll make you a deal. I'll help you develop your recipes just for you. And I'll let you work in the ice cream parlor so you can learn it. But you have to buy all your milk and everything from us.
Fair.
Oh, man, what a deal.
Super, yeah.
So my wife and I, my mom and dad, my grandpa and grandma, we all went and we worked in Fenton's ice cream parlor, waiting table, scooping, making ice cream, doing everything. And he helped us develop our own unique recipes, which we tweaked. And so it was the start. So then we opened Leatherby's in 1982. And my dad, he said, our philosophy isn't to sell ice cream. We're not here to sell ice cream. I thought,
are you sure?
Wait a minute. That's what we're doing is we're selling ice cream. Makes people happy, right? And he says, no. He said, that's the byproduct. The ice cream is the byproduct. He says, we're selling joy. He said, everybody that comes in here has a little hole in their heart that they're looking to fill every day. And they want to fill it with happiness and joy and peace. And he says, so it isn't the ice cream that fills it. It's us. It's how we treat people. He said, when people come in, we look at them in the eye. They're people. We never say how many. 4, party of 4, follow me. He would fire you if you did that. They're people. And you greet them and they're coming into your home and you look at them and you say, welcome. Thank you for coming in. Nice to have you. You know, what brought you in today? And he said, they're human beings and they want joy in their heart and we give it to them. Can you imagine if people went to Disneyland and they encountered a bunch of people who never smiled? He said, that's the philosophy. And so it was called generosity. Everything was generosity. Gift of yourself, large portions. I remember people would come in and they'd get an ice cream cone. One of our scoopers would make an ice cream cone and my dad would walk over there and he goes, wait a minute, give me that ice cream cone back. And people would look at him like they're shocked and they hand him the ice cream cone back and he goes, that isn't big enough. And he'd take another scoop and he'd put another scoop on and hand it back to him.
Okay.
I mean, stuff like that. So it was contagious. The employees liked it. People loved it. We had lines going out the door. It was amazing. It was really amazing. And it was fun. It was fun to work there. You know, if you came in and you were down or tired or something, you were lifted just by being there, which most businesses aren't like that.
Yeah.
You know, you're struggling to, you know, keep a happy face.
It is an experience. It's everything you just described. Plus, you feel like you stepped back into like the 1950s or something.
Nostalgia.
So, yeah.
That's sort of our success. But now I want to talk about what went sideways a little bit.
A little bit. Yeah.
So we had everyone coming to us everywhere. We had Disney coming to us, wanting us to open in Disneyland.
Oh, wow.
And we had people from all over wanting to buy our concept, you know, different franchises. And we decided this was our family's thing, our creation. We wanted to do it. So we decided that we would franchise. I wish we'd have never done it, but we decided we would. And my dad, being so dynamic, he sold 28 or 30 franchises within a year and a half or 2 years.
Wow.
And I was the one that had to build them and train everybody. It was a lot of work. We went and got all the legal licenses. We developed manuals, training manuals. I hired people from the Creamery to train. And we opened 28 franchises in 6 states within 2 years.
Oh, my gosh.
It was a lot of work. And we worked hard and we tried to train the people. But we made a mistake, actually 2 mistakes. The attorneys told my dad, don't become entangled with the franchises financially. They are their own business. They've bought a concept from you. You could teach them, show them how to do it and everything, but if they fail, they fail. You don't suffer that, right? Other than you don't want one of your restaurants to fail.
Sure.
Right? But you don't lose anything. Well, my dad, he wanted to help people. So he would guarantee their leases so they could get a good lease. right, at a good
boy.
rate, and he would guarantee their lease. And so all of a sudden, we are their partner in a way, which was really, really a mistake. You know, a good intention, but a mistake. And the second thing we did, we underestimated our own contribution. You know, being entrepreneurs, working with people, having an understanding of business and advertising and, you know, marketing and finance and all the stuff that you learn when you run a business. Well, we allowed people to buy franchises thinking that when we opened, we didn't know anything about ice cream, and we made it successful. We're giving them a concept, so for sure they're going to be successful.
Yeah.
But you know what? Every business, you got to work. You got to work hard, and you got to put your heart and soul in it. And a restaurant requires a diverse background. You know, like I said, marketing and management, finance, and you know,
hours. A lot of hours in the restaurant business.
Yeah. And so we allowed people to buy franchises that we should never have allowed. Nice people, good people, successful in a way, doctors and different people. But when they had to run a business, a restaurant business, some failed. So out of 28, we had 5 or 6 not make it. But basically what happened is when they fail, they don't blame themselves. You know, that's not human nature.
Yeah. Okay.
So they came and they said, your concept doesn't work, or you didn't train me right, or the location we picked out wasn't good. You didn't advise me right, or on and on and on and on, right? We sent people to their store to work there. Well, these people weren't good enough. And you didn't have a good marketing plan. That's the reason we failed. It's your fault. So,
and they want something back.
well, they sued.
Yeah.
So we had these lawsuits for these 5 ice cream parlors. But some of the ice cream parlors, in order to raise the money, people syndicated them. So they would sell interest. 50 people would give some money, and they would be a part owner of an ice cream parlor, like buying stock.
Or like somebody rents a property from you, and then they rent those rooms, something like that.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Oh boy.
And so this this franchise has 50 owners that are all partners. We had 50 lawsuits from one. Everyone sued. And now this is the thing. If they sued for financial things, we could get out of it by filing bankruptcy because they sued for millions and we didn't have millions, right? They wanted all their money back for all the equipment and the restaurant and everything. Each one was a few $1 million. So what they did was, in not allowing us to file bankruptcy, they sued us for fraud.
Oh, dang it.
So that is not dischargeable. That's a criminal offense. You go to jail for that. And so they sued us. So even if we filed bankruptcy, we still had to defend ourselves against fraud and this kind of thing. And because we did this in multiple states, we got sued under the federal racketeering laws, RICO Act. And so, long and short, 3 years in court, hundreds of lawsuits. I say hundreds, maybe a couple of hundred lawsuits. And my dad, he got sick. And, just
the stress.
He went to the hospital. And so here I am, 27 years old, and I'm in court every single day, listening to attorneys say my family's terrible. My name was in the paper. I would go sit in church, and I would see people on the other aisle looking over and then whisper and point. It was humiliating. It was so humiliating. And so we went from this tremendous success. Oh, and then all the other good franchises, they stopped paying us.
Oh.
Right? Well, let's withhold our money. We don't know what's going to happen. We don't know if they're going to make it. We don't, are they really guilty? Are the Leatherbys bad people? Did they cheat everyone? And so all of a sudden we have no income, no way to pay our bills. And so we filed bankruptcy. My mom and dad did, lost their home, cars, everything. My wife and I selling our house. I had some rental properties gone. Everything was gone. So it was a really difficult time. And we had some lady who was a young attorney Her name was Trina Berger. She became a judge here in town. Anyway, when she was younger, she was Spitfire. And she came forward and she said, "This is wrong, what's happening to you. And I'm going to take you on. You don't have to pay me. I'm going to take you on and I'll defend you."
Wow.
And she was so amazed. She ran circles around some of these older
really?
attorneys. She was amazing. Yeah, she was a genius. She was brilliant. You know, she was a Southern belle from the South.
Okay.
So she talked real sweet. She was nails.
Okay.
And tough, but kind and good and honest, right? And anyway, she defended us. We won every single lawsuit. We didn't lose one. We never had to pay anybody. Every single one, we were vindicated.
Wow.
But we were bankrupt.
Yeah.
And one thing that she allowed us to keep the one ice cream parlor on Arden Way. I mean, that's what she fought for. We kept it. But we had to pledge the profits to paying the legal fees that we owed.
Okay.
Okay, so we kept our business. My mom and dad went back to work in the ice cream parlor. You know, from having this potential tremendous worldwide success, we were going to be the next McDonald's, to nothing. So my dad made ice cream every day. He was so humble. He went in there and made ice cream, worked and worked and worked. He was a delivery guy. He picked stuff up. My mom worked. She ran the register. My wife worked. My wife would work nights and run the cruise.
Man.
But it didn't have enough money to support me, so I had to leave the business. I left and I went into commercial real estate. Talk about difficult times. It was so difficult when you lose everything. And you lose your reputation, right? People think badly of you, and which, you know, hopefully that's the most important thing you have is who you are, right? Your credibility. And we lost everything. And I remember thinking to myself, at least I have my family, my 4 children and my wife. I can lose everything. That's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have my family. But through all this stress, my wife came one day and said, "It isn't any fun being married to you. You're not happy anymore."
Oh.
I don't want to be married. And you talk about, I could deal with anything but that, right? Losing home, job, money, possessions. They were just things. But my 4 kids and my wife, man, it was hard. So I set about making money. More than I'd ever done. I went into commercial real estate. I slept 4 hours a night, and I became Rookie of the Year for this big company, and I started making a lot of money, right? Bought a house.
Mm-hmm. Coming back.
My wife, finally, she moved into the new house. She didn't want me around, you know. It was like, I can't blame her. I wasn't going through those difficult times. I wasn't a happy person. My dad was a man of faith. He always kept saying, "There's a reason. God has a plan. You know, It's okay." All through this, he just kept saying, "You know, we need to be faithful."
Wow.
But I wasn't buying it.
Huh.
There was this anger in me, this bitterness. I remember one day I was downtown Sacramento, and I was going in an elevator up, probably to see an attorney. Who knows? And I was in this elevator, and all of a sudden the door opens, and the door starts to shut, and this guy sticks his hand in, opens up, and he was one of the attorneys that had been the cruelest, meanest, most vile, saying the worst things about it. I almost threw up one day because of the things he was saying about me and my dad and my family in court. I was in court, and this guy steps in there, and the elevator shuts, and I look at this guy, and I'm bigger than he is. And I thought, you know what? I said, "Lord, are you allowing me to get a little vengeance here? Mm-hmm. Did you arrange this?" And I said, "No, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to go there. I'm just going to be quiet." So I stood there, and pretty soon the guy starts looking at me out the corner of his eye, and then he recognizes me.
Oh, boy.
And he says, "You're Dave Leatherby." And I said, "Yes." And he says, "You know, can I tell you something?" I didn't want to hear it. I said, "Okay." And he said, "I really admire you and your father." He said, "My clients were the worst people. They wanted me to go after you in every way. And, through that whole process, you and your father, you were honest, you were men of integrity. And he started saying all these nice things after court, right?
Wow.
And I felt sorry for him that he would treat us like that, believing that we were good people, but attacking us just because his client wanted him to, right? But anyway, I walked out of there and he said, "Can I shake your hand?" I said, "Okay." And he left. And I remember it was
Wow.
kind of mixed feelings.
Well, yeah.
But I thought, you know what? Maybe things can turn around. All that negative stuff, people, maybe they do see the truth. Maybe they know that we tried so hard to help these people in their businesses, right?
That's amazing. Found the positive in that guy.
Isn't
I
it?
love that.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'll never forget it. So, started off poor, made a lot of money, lost everything. So for 10 years, I was in commercial real estate. And I quit my job to go to work for a priest. He was a real dynamic priest. He was a teacher, and he was recording his teachings, and he was so profound. He was one of these guys that had a tremendous gift to teach. And somehow he attracted me, and I quit my real estate job and went to work for this guy. My wife was furious. And I said, no, I just feel in my heart that's what I'm supposed to do. And she goes, "You got kids that are going to college now. How are you going to pay the tuitions?" And I said, "I don't know. I just feel like this is what I'm supposed to do." So what happens is my daughter gets accepted. She applies to 10 schools, gets 9 scholarships.
Oh my gosh.
Almost full rides. Georgetown, Boston College. She was really, really, really smart.
Okay, academic scholarships.
Yeah, she was
Impressive.
number one of her class, in high school. And so anyway, she gets all these scholarships. Well, one school she applied to, the University of Notre Dame, there were 4 girls at her school that had applied to Notre Dame. And she was a little late applying, and they all 3 had been accepted, so they put my daughter on the waiting list. She got no scholarship. All the other schools. So anyway, we went and visited all these schools. I took her on an airplane and we drove, and we get to Notre Dame, and guess where she wants to go? She wants to go to the University of Notre Dame, which gave us no money.
Yeah.
And I'm working for this priest, and I have no money.
Oh boy.
And my wife's mad at me. And, here goes. It's funny how when you have these serious problems, one setback can push you all the way down to the bottom of the hill again. I don't know if you've ever encountered that.
Yeah.
But you don't just go part way down the hill. So all of a sudden, we start having all these troubles. I took a pilgrimage. I met a guy. I knew a guy that I had known for a long time, and he was in a bad way. He was a very successful attorney, graduated number 1 from West Point. He's attorney here in Sacramento, and he was being unfaithful to his wife. He had 2 kids that were in school with my kids. I'd see him in the bars. Friday afternoon, I'd go have a beer with a friend. He'd have been there all day, slipping and falling off the bar stools. And I remember thinking, what a sad thing. This guy is so smart and so brilliant. Look at him. What is this life? And this man, I hadn't seen him for a couple months. Last time, falling off a bar stool, I go to a kids' swim meet on Saturday. And this guy walks up to me and he says to me, "Hey, Dave," puts out his hand to shake my hand. And I looked at him and he looked familiar, but I didn't recognize him. I go, "Hi." And he told me his name, and I go, "Oh my gosh, what have you been doing?" It looked like he'd seen the fountain of youth. He looked 20 years younger, and he was happy, and he looked peaceful, and all that suffering that I saw him sitting on the bar stool was gone. The guy really looked like he was glowing. That may sound weird, but he just radiated this contentment and peace. And I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, he said, "My life's different. I took a pilgrimage." And I said, "A pilgrimage, like a religious pilgrimage?" And see, for me, religion was kind of low on the list at that point, right?
Yeah.
I was still mad.
Okay.
I hid it. Nobody knew I was mad, but inside, I was raging against the world and all the injustice and people treating me bad, my wife. And so I wasn't really a very good person. You wouldn't have known it, but I wasn't.
In your actions or your thoughts?
My thoughts
Okay.
inside. Yeah. Yeah, I would have to suppress anger all the time. It was in there. And that's a bad way to be, you know? And that's what happens a lot of times when you suffer. There's two paths you can take, right? And one of them is anger and bitterness and resentment and anger against God and people. And there's another path, and I'll tell you about that. But so this guy looked so different, and he said, I went on a religious pilgrimage. And I said, really? Like, what kind of religion? He goes, I'm a Catholic. And I went to this place over in this little tiny village in a communist country where these children are allegedly claiming that they see people from heaven, or the Blessed Virgin Mary. And they claim it. And he goes, I went over there. And he said, Dave, it's real. I saw miracles. And he started telling me about it. And all of a sudden I look at him and I go, oh no.
Oh no.
This guy, he's a religious lunatic, you know? I thought, and I didn't want to catch it. I just started backing up. And I said, oh, that's really nice. That's really
So glad you're doing well. It was great to see you.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear about it.
Yep.
I was gone. I zipped out of there. And I remember telling my wife, I went home, I go, oh, the poor guy, he's gone off the deep end. He believes all this stuff. And something resonated. All the next week or so, I kept thinking about him. Because how does a person express joy and peace and serenity and all that? You can't make that up. And it was on his face and it was in his actions. And so I thought, you know, there must be something. So the next week I looked for him. He was at the next swim meet. And I went up to him and he said, I was hoping I'd see you. I brought a pamphlet about this place that I went to. So I said, okay. And I read it. And I was hoping that I could talk to him about it. And I devoured this pamphlet. I just read it. And it just talked about things that were in my heart, you know? It just resonated. The first words that these young people in this little communist village that had no running water, you know, they had wells, it had no electricity.
Where is this?
It was in a little village in Croatia. But at the time it was, it was a communist country consisting of all those.
USSR?
Yeah, it was part of USSR. Okay. So anyway, he said he saw these miracles. And I'm reading about all this, and I knew I had to go. I just thought, you know what? This is the thought that entered my mind. If I was alive 2,000 years ago, and somebody came and they told me that there's this guy walking around, and he's healing people, and he's walking on water and raising people from the dead, and he's saying the most amazing things, what would I have done? And I hope that I would have said, I would have sought him out. I would have wanted to go, right? And I felt that right now. If this is really happening in this little backwater village in nowhere land, right, a communist country, I need to go. I need to find out if it's true. Right? I just had to. And so I went home and told my wife. She got mad. She goes, I'd rather go to Hawaii or something. Why are you going to go there? You know,
Croatia.
Yeah. So anyway, I bought a ticket and went by myself, all alone. And I went to this village and I experienced what my goofy friend, his name is Dave too, my goofy friend Dave experienced. I saw miracles. I witnessed things. It was amazing. I didn't know that those things could happen today. You always hear about them happening in the past.
Right.
Right. And then of course you don't know if they're exaggerated or whatever, right? And I'm very skeptical, and I always try to keep my feet on the ground. I went to this place, and my prayer on the way home, I was so taken. My prayer on the way home on the airplane was, Dear Lord, help me to be different. I want to be different. I want to change my life. But please don't make me a religious fanatic.
Yeah. What was the biggest miracle you saw, if you're willing to share?
Well, I saw physical miracles.
Okay.
Like you could look directly into the sun and something would come in front of it. And, usually you look in the sun, burns your eyes.
Yeah.
You destroy your eyes. This, no, it was like a host, something around in front of the sun. And you could see the rays of light behind it. But thousands of people could look up. But then people right next to you couldn't see it.
What?
So it wasn't something that everyone saw. It was only some people could see it. I could look directly in the sun. It's the most amazing thing.
People that had eaten something, drank some water, or
no, nothing.
No,
just went there in faith. Just had faith. They went there, and it was like, you wonder why, but it was like a sign that what was happening was true.
Okay.
All right. So I saw different signs like that. I had a rosary. I never prayed the rosary. Mm-hmm. It's an old lady's prayer, repetitive. I didn't like it. But I got there and everybody's praying the rosary. So I prayed the rosary. And as I'm praying the rosary, I'm looking at that and I had a silver chain, black beads, the whole chain and everything, crucifix, altar and gold in my hands. I go, what the heck? Huh. And then I thought maybe I was out in the sun and I wasn't seeing right.
Okay.
So there's some guy sitting next to me.
You're looking for a logical reason.
Yeah. And then I started thinking that maybe in this communist country they make trick rosaries. But things like that. And other miracles. There were many others. But the major one was in a person. There's these young people that allegedly see and can touch this woman from heaven, the Blessed Virgin Mary. And she speaks to them, and they relate messages. So I don't know. I didn't know if I believed. And I'm standing there, and I'm thinking, I'm in this village, and I'm thinking, I'd really like to see one of these young people. The crowds, there's thousands of people. Like, there have been 40 million people have gone to this little village now.
Wow.
Maybe more. So everybody clamors to be around them. They want to touch them and all. I didn't want to do that. But I wanted to see them, to talk, to hear them, because I thought, I'm kind of a salesman, and I know I'm a good judge of people, and I'll know if they're telling the truth. I'll know if there's a ulterior motive or a selfish motive or whatever. So I'm standing there, and all of a sudden I hear some people speaking English, American English, standing over there. So I kind of go up next to them because I didn't know anybody. I'm in this country where every language in the world is there, So I go over to the Americans. I'm kind of just standing there. I'm a little lonely by myself. And one of the gals looks at me and she goes, "Oh, where are you from?" I said, "Oh, I'm from California." "Oh, we're from Cleveland or something." She goes, "We're going to go. We've been invited to go to one of the young people's homes. Would you want to go with us?" I said, that was just what I was thinking.
Yeah.
I said, yeah. So we went. And so you ask, what was the catalyst? This young girl, 18, 19, 20 years old, she comes out. She's so simply, humbly dressed, and she comes out and she's a little shy. And she comes out and there's a translator that would translate her language, Croatian to English. And she said, "I welcome you here, and I would like to tell you what this woman from heaven, the Blessed Virgin Mary, is saying." And Americans start taking pictures. And she looked really sad. She goes, please put your cameras down. That's not why you're here. I'm not important. What's important is the message that she's giving the world. And I thought, well, that's a good sign. Anyway, she started talking. I'd never heard anything so profound in my life. And here this girl's 18 or 20. The depth with which she talked. The meaning of things. And she looked at every person with this real love. Just every person she looked in your eyes. And when she made contact with you, you felt like she knew you, right? I just go, oh my gosh. And then somebody asked her, "How much do you pray?" And I looked at this person, I thought, that's a dumb question. Why you ask somebody that, right? And she smiles and she says, "Well, in the beginning, I didn't really know how to pray well." She say, I say a few Our Fathers or whatever. She goes, but now, I've offered my entire life as a prayer. Everything I do, I offer to God as a prayer. Well, I'd never heard anything like that. And I looked at her and I realized what's happening here is true.
Wow.
Because that girl isn't making it up. You could tell.
Yeah.
She was real, right? So I turned around, and that's when I said, God, you got to help me be different. Because I was so far away from what she was.
With the anger inside?
Yeah. The humility, the love for others, the forgiveness, and I was actually afraid to be near her because I knew it was inside of me, this anger and rage. So that was the turning point in my life. My dad had his turning point when he met this man and read those books. This was the turning point in my life. And I came back and totally different life. And my wife wanted to leave me because I was different. It scared her.
Maybe how you felt about that attorney. Yeah. She might have felt,
Yeah, just like that.
It's hard for people. Yeah.
Oh, and I kept saying to her, but I love you differently. I love you better. I'm a better father. I'm a better husband. I care about what's important. Before I cared about all this stuff, but it scared her. And it scared her because her friends would come and say, hey, your husband's very different. Well, that would put fear in her because we didn't want to be different. We wanted to be accepted, right? And, part of her fear was, oh, no, we're going to go through this again, all this stuff, people thinking we're crazy and bad. And so it was really difficult. And here we had these businesses. We're working these businesses. My wife doesn't know if she wants to be married. So it was a tough time. We lose all our money. We lose our house. We lose our possessions. We lose our self-respect or dignity, what other people think of us, everything. And now I'm losing my family. It got so bad, and I did not want to make my wife suffer. I was so filled with happiness. The rage had left. The anger left. I loved life. I was a better father. I'd go in and read stories to my kids at night. My life was different because I had a higher purpose. And what I think it was I had all these priorities, and faith was just one of them. And when I put faith at the top, it's like everything else fell into place. If my number one thing is getting to heaven and getting my family to heaven, then every decision I make, every action I do, every interaction with people will be designed, or not designed, but will I don't know how you say it. Well, anyway, will help me get to heaven, I hope.
And therefore it would be a good decision.
Yeah. So I'm making decisions for the right reasons, the right motive. And it was amazing. Everything changed. Everything.
How quickly after that prayer did the rage get removed?
I left some of it out because I didn't want to get too detailed. But after I saw that girl in this little village, and I turned around and walked away, and I said, this is true. And I knew that I wasn't. And something happened. I went over, and I wanted to be alone. I knew I just had to be alone. I went to this place. It was a little cemetery in this tiny little village, and there were a lot of trees, and nobody was there. It was empty. And I knelt down, and I started to cry. I never cried. Since I was 4 years old, my dad told me, tough kids don't cry. I never cried. Never cried at school. Never cried when I got hurt. I wanted to be a tough kid. I never cried. Played football, injuries, never cried for nothing. Even the problems with my wife, I didn't cry. It was painful. I was in this place after seeing the beauty in this young girl and realizing how far I was from it. I knelt down and I started to cry. And it was a cry of sorrow and remorse. What have I been doing? Like just remorse. But also it was a cry of joy because I knew that there was something greater to give my life to. It was the most mixed up feelings. There was this joy, but sorrow at the same time. 2 hours. I thought my guts were going to come out.
Wow.
I was on all fours and I just cried and cried and cried. And you know what? It was like I got it all out. It was like sort of a confession.
Like a purge.
Yeah, that's the right word. And I came home and it wasn't in there anymore. It was gone. Really, truly. So it was amazing. I think it was a miracle.
That's a miracle, for sure.
To come home, because people battle with anger for so long and forgiveness, and you have to struggle and
resentment.
Yeah. And it left. And all of a sudden I see my wife, she would treat me bad. And before, if she said something bad or hurtful, or it would wound me, and I would say, why do you do that? And, and now when she did it, I looked at her like she was this wounded, afraid little girl. And I had compassion. And I would say, it's okay. It's okay. I understand. How do you do that when somebody's treating you bad? And I would just say, it's okay. Don't worry. So my wife, I started going to Mass every day, following my dad every day. And it came time for Easter. And before Easter, you go to confession. If you're a Catholic, you got to go to confession before Easter. Right?
Sure.
So I told my family, 4 kids sitting at the dinner table, and I knew I was going to evoke the wrath of my wife by bringing up faith and religion. Mm-hmm. And I told my kids, I said, hey, I'm going to go to confession over at the church. Would any of you like to go with me and join me? And they all go, Dad, we went at school, because they're in Catholic school. We went at school. And my wife goes, aren't you going to ask me? And I go, okay, do you want to go with me to confession? She goes, yes. I thought I was going to fall off the chair. Wow. I didn't even know what expression I should have on my face. And I said, okay, you can go. And she goes, I treat you so bad because I've been so angry with you, and you're always kind to me. And I hadn't been before, right? This is something new. And she said, I want what you have. So she goes over, we go to confession. She comes out crying, and it transformed her life. She became different. We became a team. We had the same goals. We were partners. It was a miracle. So anyway, today, my dad died a few years ago. And I grew in respect for my father. The anger that I felt that he did the wrong things and he contributed towards us losing everything, and all of that was gone. And I just had respect for my dad. What a good man, and what he tried to do, and his principles. And even though he had some lapses in business judgment, right? His intentions were good. And all of a sudden I grew, and I had this great respect for my father. Anyway, so he died a few years ago. And now I am the leader, sort of this Leatherby's ice cream deal. And now we have farms where we grow our own nuts, almonds and walnuts and pecans. And, we've grown, and we own our own real estate, our own buildings. And, things are different. Mm-hmm. And I give the talk to all our employees, kind of the orientation talk, I give it to them. And I tell them what my dad said. You're not here to sell ice cream. You're here when that person walks in the door to fill their heart with joy, happiness. You are there, right, to be a gift to others. You are selling yourself. Now, it doesn't always work, but you know what? People notice. I go out to the airport, and I'll be buying a ticket at the terminal, right? I'll give them my card, and they'll go, oh, are you related to the Leatherbys? Yes. And most of the time they don't say, oh, I love your ice cream, which you'd think they would. They say, where do you get those employees? Huh. What a great compliment. Anyway, so we
Fantastic.
try very hard to make our business an outreach of our faith to help others, not to preach, not to convert, right? But to show people that there's goodness in the world, there's hope, right? And that's our purpose at Leatherby's. That's it.
Wow.
So I don't know if you have other questions or thoughts.
I don't. I should. I have them prepped, but I'm just kind of stunned. There's just something. I think I'm feeling kind of what you felt from that guy and what your wife felt from you. And I've got anger in me that I'm stuffing, and to hear that there's a way that it can just be gone is,
Yeah.
I don't know. I believe you is what I'm
Do
saying.
you?
Yes, I do. And
Yeah.
I'm just kind of taken back by being in your presence, and I thank you. I feel the need to call you sir too, or Mr. Leatherby,
no.
which is, I know, I don't ever feel like that about
Do you?
anyone.
Oh, that's funny. You know what? I get embarrassed. Sometimes people will go, they'll see me. I'm buying flooring in the flooring store, tile or something, and they'll know who we are. And I've had people, can I take my picture with you? Will you sign your autograph? And it's embarrassing. I go, no, I'm just like you. I'm the same as you, right? I'm nobody special.
I do have a question, actually. So to people hearing this, they're like, man, that's awesome, but I don't want to go full Catholic. I don't want. What do you say to them as far as like, hey, you can still maybe see a miracle or find peace or ask God for your own path? I mean, because it is intimidating, the thought of possibly just going full religious to get the anger out or to see the miracles. What would you say to someone who's like, I'm not willing to do all that, but I'm suffering and I want what you have? Is there anything I can do to get a piece of this peace that you have?
I believe, and I think I'm right, but I believe that we have a creator, and he loves us, and he revealed himself to be a father, right? The prayer that Jesus taught us, our Father. And he revealed himself to the Jews for 2,000 years, right? As a loving father. So what I would say to people, we have a creator who loves us and who wants what's best for us. And he'll take us, every one of us, where we're at. We don't have to make these drastic decisions and life-changing decisions. He will give the grace that leads every person. So what I would tell somebody is, begin to pray. The key, begin to pray. Even if it's a few minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, set aside some time during the day and ask, say, God, if you're real, help me know you.
I like that.
God, if...
prove it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Show me, help me know you. Dear Lord, I don't know which way to go, right? Reveal to me. I want to know you. If you're true, I want to know. If you're really there. And God will answer, because he won't fail to answer a prayer like that, a humble prayer. He won't. And you could say, Dear Lord, I am struggling with these things. I need your help. If you're there, if you're real, right? Help me. And I believe that God loves every one of us so much that he will lead all of us to the truth. So my prayer on the way home, Lord, I just want to know the truth. Lord, I just want to know the truth. But don't make me a weirdo.
Yeah.
But I want to know the truth. I think that's the way. Just start 5 to 15 minutes quietly, reverently place yourself in a position where you can just speak and quietly listen, and then go about your day. And he won't fail. He will not.
All right.